You've devoted your life to generosity and kindness, yet calamity still finds you. You've watched the ruthless prosper, the innocent endure agony. If the universe truly balances every deed, why do the scales so often appear broken? In this exploration, we'll shatter comforting illusions about cosmic justice and confront the unsettling truth. Karma's ledger may obey laws we hardly understand. Karma in its pure form is a natural law. Every intention, word and act leaves an imprint that shapes future experience. But life's complexity often hides those imprints beneath layers of time, circumstance, and collective forces. Immediate versus deferred results. Some karmic effects ripen within days or lifetimes. Others lie dormant for centuries. This latency makes outcomes appear random. How do you reconcile ancient deeds with modern misfortune? Collective and intersecting karmas. Individual karma weaves into family, community, and societal patterns. A well-meaning person born into systemic oppression may suffer from inherited ripples they did not author. The role of intention Buddhism prizes intention over outcome. Yet when good intention coincides with harm, say, a doctor whose treatment fails, does karma punish the intent or the result? Natural law versus moral judgment. Karma is not divine retribution, but impersonal consequence. Yet we instinctively read it as reward and punishment. This moral overlay distorts the simple physics of cause and effect. Karma is often likened to a seed planted in fertile ground, yet not every seed sprouts on schedule. Understanding this latency is crucial to facing karma's seeming injustices. The field of conditions. A seed needs sun, rain, soil microbe communities, and the correct season to germinate. Likewise, a karmic potential requires converging life conditions, body-mind relationships, and societal contexts to mature. A generous act in youth may lie fallow until you enter an environment that recalls that kindness, perhaps meeting that person again, or facing a crisis where that generosity is repaid. Intertwined timelines. Karmic consequences can span lifetimes. Ancient texts describe virtuous acts in prior existences ripening now, and vice versa. This multi-life model stretches our moral imagination. A moment's cruelty today might be the echo of a long-forgotten pain. Yet modern skeptics balk at reincarnation. Even within a single life, spacing between cause and effect can outlast memory, making fairness impossible to trace. Karmic weight and volume. Not all deeds carry equal weight. A single act of premeditated violence may generate a vast karmic consequence, whereas countless small kindnesses have subtler, slower fruitions. This disparity creates imbalances. Blatant evil meets swift ripening, e.g., a criminal's immediate downfall, while quiet virtue ripens in obscurity, leading observers to conclude that kindness goes unrewarded. Subtle versus gross karmas. Gross karmas, acts of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, tend to manifest more noticeably. Subtle or unwholesome mental habits like envy or gossip accumulate slowly, often invisible, until they coalesce into larger patterns of suffering. Good people may bear the brunt of subtle negative habits they never acknowledged, while overt villains suffer obvious karmic setbacks. The ripening of karma obeys a complex ecology of causes, far from simple tit-for-tat justice. It resembles a vast, interwoven tapestry where threads span ages. If karma weaves our future, where does personal freedom fit? Is every step predestined by past causes? Or can we rewrite our script in the present moment? The two truths. Buddhism speaks of relative and absolute truth. Relatively, Actions have consequences. Absolutely. All phenomena lack inherent essence. This middle way allows for both karmic law and personal agency. On the relative level, our choices shape experience. On the absolute level, clinging to the notion of a fixed self or fixed future is the root of suffering. Karmic conditioning versus karmic creation. Past actions condition our tendencies. Certain mental grooves are easier to follow, yet each moment we exercise attention, we can reinforce old patterns or carve new neural pathways. Freedom lies in mindfulness, noticing reactive habitual patterns and choosing a different response, thus planting fresh karmic seeds. Skillful means and intentional reversal. Mahayana teachings highlight upaya, skillful means, where bodhisattvas intentionally adopt methods to transform negative karma into fuel for compassion. They harness strong emotions like anger or fear as catalysts for practice. This intentional reversal demonstrates that karma is not fate written in stone, but material we can transmute with enlightened intention. The illusion of full control. Absolute control is an illusion. Our biology, upbringing, and societal systems exert massive influence. Buddhism warns against believing we can micromanage outcomes. True freedom emerges when we relinquish the fantasy of complete control and instead focus on present moment integrity, acting wisely without attachment to results. Karma shapes us, but does not unmake us. In the tension between conditioning and choice, we discover the field of liberation, where responsibility and freedom dance together. Suffering is the crucible of awakening, or so tradition says. Yet the flames that refine the soul often scorch the innocent. Why must pain be our sternest instructor, and is its curriculum equitable? Suffering as mirror and mentor. In classical texts, dukkha, suffering, is the first noble truth, a mirror reflecting clinging, aversion, and ignorance. Yet when that mirror cracks upon the brow of a gentle soul, the lesson feels punitive rather than pedagogic. Pain can awaken profound insight. Fear can reveal the fragility of self. Grief can deepen compassion. But many endure unbearable torment without any shift of perspective, trapped in cycles of reactive suffering. The merit-suffering imbalance. Buddhism suggests that virtuous deeds accumulate merit, which protects one from extreme harm. But history overflows with martyrs and sages tortured for their beliefs. Their suffering seems disproportionate to their merits, begging the question, does karma truly shield the good? This imbalance points to a more subtle dynamic. Merit may not erase the heat of trial, but can shape the quality of response, transforming agony into sacred travail. Yet this turning of poison into medicine requires awareness often absent in mass suffering. Personal growth versus collective pain. Models of individual rehabilitation through hardship. Prisoners turn saints. Addicts reborn. Glorify suffering as transformative. However, collective nightmares, wars, famines, pandemics inflict anonymous agony on multitudes. Such ubiquitous suffering cannot serve each individual's awakening. Instead, it amplifies question of fairness. How does universal pain function as teacher when it fails to catalyze collective insight? The danger of moralizing pain, equating suffering with deserved consequence, easily slides into moral arrogance. They suffer because they earned it. This stance fractures empathy and reinforces social hierarchies. True Buddhist practice warns against clinging to views. Inclination to judge another's suffering as just only tightens the grip of ignorance, obscuring the shared vulnerability at the heart of dukkha. Pain may reveal the structures of samsara, but it doesn't guarantee awakening. The teacher's voice can be drowned by screams, raising the question whether dukkha is a fair tutor or a random tormentor. Karma is often framed as deeply personal accountancy, but what of the legacies of colonialism, systemic racism, and class oppression? When entire groups suffer, how does individual karma intersect with collective injustice? Inherited and institutional karma's families bear karmic residues, intergenerational trauma, patterns of abuse, cycles of poverty. Individuals can strive for virtue, yet awaken in conditions shaped by ancestors' actions and societal structures. Institutions, governments, corporations, schools operate on karmic accumulations of greed, fear, and domination. Victims of systemic injustice carry debts they didn't create, challenging notions of personal responsibility. Collective liberation versus individual retribution. If karma's law demands each suffer their own misdeeds, then collective crimes, slavery, genocide, should yield collective reckoning. Yet rarely do entire populations face karmic ripening uniformly. Buddhist teachings offer communal practices, dedicating merit for ancestors, for all beings, but these do not dismantle oppressive systems. True justice demands social transformation beyond merit transfers. The ethics of privilege. Those born into privilege often enjoy karmic credit, access to education, healthcare, safety that shields them from immediate suffering. This structural protection is unearned merit. Recognizing privilege as karmic advantage reframes activism. True practitioners must convert unearned merit into altruistic action, not personal aggrandizement. Engage Buddhism and structural karma. Modern movements, liberation Buddhism, socially engaged sanghas, assert that alleviating collective suffering is an essential karmic practice. By addressing poverty, racism, and environmental collapse, practitioners plant seeds of systemic transformation. Such engagement transcends the narrow ledger of individual karma, acknowledging that true fairness requires rebalancing social scales, not merely reciting mantras. Karma's justice cannot be isolated from social ethics. Individual awakening beckons only when we confront the collective hells we inherit and perpetuate. Altruism glimmers as the remedy for past wrongs. Give freely, dedicate merit, transform poison into medicine. But does generosity really erase debts, or merely deepen the illusions of cosmic bookkeeping? Merit transference and its limits. Pali Suttas describe how one can transfer merit to others, ancestors, devas, suffering beings. Yet this sharing often feels transactional. I build this stupa, you wash away my sins. Such exchanges risk reducing selfless giving to another form of karmic investment, the tyranny of altruism. When altruism becomes a moral imperative, it enslaves the giver. Endless charity can morph into self-sacrifice that reinforces notions of debt. I must give more to atone for past misdeeds. True freedom demands action born of presence, not penance. Skillful means versus merit-making. Bodhisattvas employ skillful means, upaya, not to bank merit, but to wake beings from delusion. Their acts cut through karmic tethers rather than add to them. The distinction lies in intention. Is giving away to tally credits, or a spontaneous eruption of compassion, the void beyond action? Ultimate liberation transcends both merit and demerit. At the pinnacle of insight, all karmic accounts dissolve into shunyata, emptiness. In that void, action flows without hesitation, or expectation of fruit. Any residual sense of paying off karma is seen as subtle clinging. Altruism can soothe the wounded heart, but only insight into emptiness severs the ledger. To give without grasping is to offset karma in its purest sense. Merit-making, dana, precepts, meditation is the bedrock of practice. Yet every merit ritual risks an unseen flip side: the inflation of ego, the firming of I as the meritorious one. Ego inflation through merit public acts of generosity, whole donations, large offerings, can inflate self-importance. Look at how much I give becomes the silent mantra, erecting a subtle barricade between giver and Dharma. Merit anxiety. When merit becomes a currency, practitioners fret over their balance. Have I given enough? Am I falling behind? Such anxiety mirrors the very greed that Buddhism seeks to dissolve, turning noble practices into new forms of attachment. Competitive spirituality retreat centers publish leaderboards, hours of meditation, number of precepts observed. Competition corrodes communal spirit, breeding resentment among those who merit less, revealing how merit-making can fracture the Sangha into haves and have-nots. The sinking of merit into delusion. Without wisdom, merit anchors the self more firmly. I am a good person. This self-identity becomes the next layer of bondage, obscuring the deeper realization of non-self. Merit thus becomes merit-breaking. Liberation in non-meritorious being. The highest path isn't meritless, but beyond merit. One lives in spontaneous generosity and ethics, without tallying the score. Here, giving is as natural as breathing, devoid of any karmic ledger. When merit-making dissolves the sense of a meritorious self, it completes its purpose. Until then, each act of giving must be shadowed by vigilant self-inquiry. In many traditions, forgiveness is hailed as the highest antidote. Release the grudge, and the karmic debt dissolves. But can an act of pardon truly erase the ripples of past harm? Or does it simply cloak the ledger in nicer handwriting? The forgiver's dilemma. When you forgive a transgression, you may free your heart from hate, but the causal momentum of that original act still courses through the world. Forgiveness comforts the forgiver, but does it neutralize the seed sown by the offender? Forgiveness as karma transfer. Some schools teach that forgiving another channels merit toward the wrongdoer, lightening their burden. Yet this merit transference can feel like bribery. I forgive you so you suffer less, and may obscure genuine accountability. Self-forgiveness and inner reckoning. We often reserve pardon for others while condemning ourselves. Yet self-criticism compounds karmic tension. Each self-reproach plants another seed of suffering. Forgiving oneself can be as radical and as fraught as forgiving a tyrant. Collective forgiveness rituals. Post-conflict societies hold public ceremonies of apology and forgiveness. These can foster healing, but they also risk becoming theatrical absolutions that paper over systemic injustices without transforming underlying conditions. The illusion of instant release. True liberation from karmic consequence unfolds through insight and ethical transformation. Mere words of pardon without inner change are like trying to erase ink from stone. Forgiveness must coincide with growth. Otherwise, the ledger remains legible. Forgiveness soothes the wounds of the heart, but it cannot unwrite the past. It is a balm, not a solvent of karma's law. Social media thrives on instant gratification. Instant karma clips of cheaters tripped, bullies humiliated, villains undone. Yet real karma is neither swift nor guaranteed. Why does cosmic justice lag? And does that delay betray the very principle it upholds? The speed of karmic ripening. Quick you re-out clips misrepresent a law that ripens across lifetimes and conditions. A viral fall in today's news feed tells us nothing of the complex forces that truly govern consequence. Selective perception. We spotlight dramatic reversals. He stole my parking spot and then got a flat tire. But ignore the countless unseen acts that bear fruit in subtler ways. This bias misleads us into believing karma favors sensational payback over steady justice. The tyranny of expectation. Expecting immediate retribution fosters impatience and moralizing. When the offender thrives, we judge the cosmos unfair. This undermines our own practice, shifting us from contemplative understanding to a consumer's quest for instant vindication. Karma beyond cause and effect. Buddhism teaches that ultimate justice transcends karmic retribution. The end of the cycle of birth and death lies beyond both reward and punishment. Clinging to fast-track karma anchors us in samsara, not liberation. Cultivating patience with the unseen. The true test of faith in karma is patience, trusting that every action matters, even when its outcome remains invisible. This patience itself is an insight into the law's profundity and a remedy for our demand for speed. Instant karma fantasies may thrill our senses, but they betray the vast tapestry of cause and effect woven beyond our momentary gaze. Karmic theory insists that every event has a cause, yet we witness innocence felled by earthquakes, untimely illness, or sudden violence. How can such randomness coexist with a cosmos governed by moral cause and effect? Natural disasters as karmic mirror. Traditional texts sometimes frame catastrophes as collective karma, ripened seeds of greed and violence within a community. Yet this runs the risk of blaming victims for forces far beyond their control. Psychologically, viewing disaster as punishment for communal wrongdoing can numb empathy and obstruct real-world relief efforts. Genetic and environmental suffering. Babies born with congenital conditions or into polluted environments confront suffering they did not author. If karma spans lifetimes, these conditions might reflect distant actions, but this explanation offers little solace to those grappling with present injustice. The role of chance in rebirth. Within the Buddhist cosmology, rebirth into fortunate or unfortunate circumstances involves an element of chance. Karmic seeds mix unpredictably with the conditions of one's parents, geography, and era. This interplay suggests that while no event is entirely random, the weave of karma and circumstance leaves room for experiences that feel arbitrary and unfair. The wild card of collective karma. When large-scale suffering afflicts entire populations, pandemics, wars, individuals endure consequences not directly linked to personal actions. Here, collective karma functions like a storm surge. No individual raindrop can claim sole responsibility. Understanding collective karma as emergent rather than individually assigned helps us see shared responsibility, but complicates the notion of personal fairness. Compassion beyond causality. The unpredictability of misfortune calls us to respond with compassion rather than judgment. Whether or not a soul deserves suffering, the ethical imperative remains: alleviate pain wherever it arises. In this light, karma's apparent randomness becomes a call to solidarity, reminding us that fairness in action matters more than metaphysical accounting. Random misfortune exposes the gap between theory and lived reality. urging us to ground our practice in compassionate response rather than speculative justice. Even as we ponder cosmic justice, we project our own prejudices onto the karmic ledger, judging who deserves happiness and who is worthy of suffering. The halo and horns effect. We label virtuous people as good and assume they face only deserved hardship. Conversely, we dehumanize those we judge bad, rationalizing their suffering as karmic retribution. This cognitive bias skews our understanding of karma, turning it into a tool of moral superiority. Cultural and class prejudices societies often view poverty, illness, or imprisonment as signs of moral failing. These prejudices infuse karmic rhetoric with judgment. They're homeless because of their bad karma. Such beliefs perpetuate stigmas and obstruct social support, betraying the Buddha's teaching on universal compassion. Gendered and racialized karma. Historical and contemporary contexts show that women, racial minorities, and marginalized groups are disproportionately labeled as carrying heavy karma. Invoking karma to explain social inequities excuses systemic injustice and silences calls for structural change. Spiritual bypassing. Some use karma as an escape hatch. They suffer to learn lessons, thus avoiding engagement with the root causes of suffering, such as oppression or trauma. This bypassing perpetuates harm, as it dismisses real-world factors in favor of abstract doctrine. Cultivating karmic humility. Recognizing our biases calls for karmic humility, acknowledging that we cannot fully know the causes and conditions behind another's experience. A humble approach refrains from facile judgments and redirects attention to compassionate action, honoring the complexity of cause and effect. Our judgments of who deserves what reveal more about our own minds than about any cosmic justice, reminding us to cultivate humility and mercy. Karma has often been wielded as a cosmic sword, righting wrongs through invisible retribution, yet true justice transcends punishment. It arises when communities transform suffering into collective healing rather than tallying moral debts. Retribution versus restoration. Traditional views equate justice with balance. Misdeeds must incur equivalent suffering. But when a victimized community demands only the perpetrator's downfall, the cycle of harm continues. Restorative justice shifts focus. How can both offender and offended move toward wholeness? Karmic accountability in community collective rituals, truth commissions, public apologies, reparations, mirror Buddhist merit sharing, but orient toward healing. They acknowledge harm, validate experience, and mobilize communal support rather than invoke karmic vengeance. Transformative justice, as Buddhist practice activists and engaged Buddhists now apply dana, generosity, sila, ethics, and panya, wisdom, to systems of harm. In prisons, Sangha-led programs replace punitive models with mentorship and meditation, aiming to transmute cycles of violence into pathways of insight, shared merit, shared burden. When communities dedicate merit for collective well-being, distributing resources, offering collective meditation for healing, they acknowledge interdependence. Each person's liberation supports all. This radical generosity rewrites the karmic ledger in ink of compassion. Ethical emergence of social systems, true systemic reform, land redistribution, universal healthcare, environmental stewardship, embodies karma's law at scale. These policies don't mete out punishment. They create conditions where past harms cannot ripen into future suffering. Justice becomes preventative, not retributive. When justice focuses not on matching wounds with wounds, but on co-creating environments where suffering cannot thrive, karma's promise unfolds as collective liberation. Every model of karma hinges on notions of cause and effect, merit and demerit. Yet the ultimate paradox is that liberation comes not through flawless action, but through embracing our imperfect humanity. The myth of the perfect karmic agent, striving for moral purity, can become its own bondage. Endless self-scrutiny, paralyzing fear of missteps, spiritual burnout. The perfect practitioner risks trading authentic growth for a fragile ego of righteousness. Radical acceptance of flaws Buddhism teaches that all phenomena are empty of inherent perfection, including ourselves. Acknowledging our flaws without shame breaks the karmic cycle of self-condemnation. Imperfection becomes a portal to humility and open-heartedness. Karma as dance, not duel. Instead of a duel between good and bad karma, imagine a dance of interwoven forces, light and shadow entwined in dynamic balance. Each misstep is an invitation to recalibrate, each stumble an opportunity for fresh intention. The liberation of not knowing. Clinging to fixed theories about karma limits awareness. Embracing uncertainty. I don't fully know how causes will ripen, frees us from the tyranny of expectation. This beginner's mind opens space for spontaneous compassion. Living with karmic grace, true freedom emerges when we act with integrity, accept whatever follows, and continue without grasping at outcomes. In this state, karma is neither reward nor punishment, but the rhythm of a live experience, each beat inviting deeper presence. The final irony of karma is that it ceases to bind the moment we stop trying to outsmart it and instead dance with life's unfolding, imperfect pulse. We have unraveled karma's intricate tapestry, from delayed ripening to collective injustice, from merit's pitfalls to the freedom of imperfection. Now comes the practice of integration, how to live when fairness and unfairness dance as inseparable partners. Embrace the tension. Fairness and unfairness coexist within the same moment. Recognize this tension as the field of awakening, neither denying injustice nor clinging to a simplistic moral order. Cultivate karmic witnessing. Observe life's events with sober attention. Note the arising of joy and pain, without labeling them just or unjust. Let each experience be raw data for insight, not fodder for moralizing. Responsive engagement act, neither from blind optimism nor cynical resignation. Respond to suffering with pragmatic compassion. Address obvious injustices while holding faith in karma's deeper currents. Non-dual ethics. Let your moral compass arise from the middle way. Avoid extremes of self-righteousness and moral nihilism. In every choice, ask not, is this fair, but does this action awaken compassion and wisdom? The practice of equanimity. Equanimity isn't indifference, but balanced presence amid life's paradoxes. Rest in that spacious mind where fairness and unfairness lose their grip, giving way to creative, compassionate action. To integrate karma's paradox is to embody a justice beyond judgment, a living ethos that honors complexity and transcends duality. I invite you, seekers of truth, to carry these paradoxes into your every breath. Let not the unanswered questions of karma deter you, but spur you toward deeper practice. Live the questions. When doubt arises, why me? Why them? Sit with the question as your teacher. Inquiries carry their own wisdom, guiding you toward insight beyond neat answers. Be the karmic bridge. Your actions can bridge past and future. Each moment of kindness, honesty, and presence seeds the world with new possibilities. Embody the transformation you wish to see. Forgo finality. Accept that karma's pattern will not resolve in your lifetime. Yet in each moment of awareness, you taste freedom from its entanglements, an ever-renewing liberation. Pass the flame, share this inquiry with others. Inspire conversations that probe injustice, kindness, and the vast interplay of causes. The true legacy of karmic wisdom is communal awakening. May your life be the living poem of karma unbound, where every paradox becomes a portal to deeper compassion and wisdom.